Hi, I'm Phil, the Practical Gardener. This particular tip is on how to protect your back. Now, I do have a compromised back as a result of gardening and working over many years, so I do have to think about strategies to manage it so that I don't damage it any further. So when I've developed this property that I'm in now, I was careful to plan for structures and systems that would allow me to protect my back, and also the activities that I do in them, I'm also thinking about my back. Back problems are one of the most common problems that occur amongst people, particularly those of middle age and older. And gardening is one of the key ways that this occurs. So therefore it does pay to be serious about how you could look after your back and the sorts of activities that you can do to look after it. I do have a series of tips on related topics which would be useful for you to watch. So here I'll be discussing some issues such as moving large pots or raised gardens or cultivation of weeds. I will have specific tips on them, but in this particular tip I will simply focus on back protection. If you have the opportunity to plan your traffic ways, make them as user-friendly as possible. I much prefer smooth, even paths to loose, uneven gravel ones. Where you need a tight turn, allow plenty of space. With each of my turns, I have a paved area, which I have made into a feature area with artwork and vertical gardens. Avoid steep inclines. While I have steps up to my house, I also have a gentle ramp, very useful for invalids, those with a back issue, or for moving heavy objects. Note that my steps and ramp are integrated, making for an aesthetic and practical design. I don't think you have to compromise on these. Keep outdoor pots on top of ceramic feet to enable access underneath them for equipment and also to allow for lifting. I do have a separate tip, number 21.9, on the topic of keeping feet under pots. Do stretches, such as a back flexion exercise, before starting a session of gardening. You should also take regular breaks and do further stretches. Even a short walk between gardening sessions can be helpful. I'm not a medical specialist. You should get proper advice on exercises if your back is severely compromised. Some time ago I had to go to an osteopath about a back problem, and he said that I am letting gravity win the battle against me. So he suggested that when I'm walking, imagine that there is a string through the top of my head pulling me up into the sky. I do that every day as I walk, and I just pull myself upright. I have found that it is a very useful strategy. Use a lifting device such as a hand truck or sack trolley for heavy objects. Here is the correct technique. First, clear the path that you will be using and put feet or other objects to rest the object on at the end of the journey. If possible, put the base of the trolley under the object. If this can't be done, lean the object away from the trolley and put the base well under, making sure the load is centered, rest it on the feet, strap heavy objects to the body of the trolley. Put one foot against the axle, pull towards yourself until the weight rests past the wheels on your side of the trolley. Pushing the load is safer for your back than pulling it, except for steps. For steps, pull the trolley against the step, then pull it slowly up. There are specialist hand trucks for steps that are available. Sometimes it is possible to walk an item such as a large paver, moving one side at a time. Now I have to say that the paver I'm showing here is not a very large one, it's just one I happen to have on hand. But if you look under it, you can see that the pavers that they're on are 3 foot by 2 foot, or 90 centimetres by 60 centimetres. They are very heavy, 70 kilograms. I made them myself. Now, after I'd made them on a flat area and then I moved them to the area where I was going to lay them, I carefully managed it so I didn't risk my back in the slightest. I would lift them from the horizontal with a pinch bar or crowbar until I had them sufficient that I could pull them vertical. I would be kneeling when I did this. Then I would either put them on my sack trolley or hand truck, or else I would walk them if it was only a short distance. I would do the same thing when I was moving them into their position. As a result, I made and laid 160 of those large 70 kilogram pavers, and I never had the slightest problem. Use the double pot technique for large pot plants. This will mean you can split the weight into two when you need to move them. Tip 21.5 covers double potting. Use a proper lifting technique with heavy objects, such as plant pots or bags of potting media. Stand close to the object, squat down rather than bend your back, grasp the item with both hands and straighten the knees slowly. Make turns with your feet rather than twisting your body. Some loads can be carried in batches. For instance, you can transfer large bags of potting mix into buckets and carry them to your potting bench in small quantities. Choose ergonomically designed tools. A long-handled garden fork or niwashi can be easier to use than a short-handled one. I love this Fiskar fork for digging beds. It has been designed to save the back. I do have to say that I'm not being sponsored by Fiskar for this. You can use a cushioned kneeling pad for garden activities. One with handles attached makes it easy to move from one position to another. Some kneelers can even double as a low seat. Knee pads do a similar function as kneeling pads. Raised beds are much easier on your back than those at ground level, as you don't have to bend so far. You can put your kneeling pad at ground level, meaning that you may not have to bend your back at all. Tip 7.9 covers raised beds, and section 7 or chapter 7 is about managing your soil. As you can see, many of my tips actually have multiple benefits, in this particular case, not just looking after your soil. Vertical gardens are even better for your back than raised gardens, as you can have your plants at any height that you wish. If you do develop a vertical garden, use a modular system with the plants in pots, which means less stress on your back when you're replacing the plants. Tip 21.11 shows how to make vertical gardens that will be great for protecting your back and be easy to manage, even for those with a severely compromised back or someone in a wheelchair. Ensure that your work or potting bench is at a convenient height for working. A spacious bench will allow you to spread your materials around, reducing the need to lift them as you work. Weeding can be surprisingly hard on your back. It pays to keep weeding at ground level to a minimum. I use a hoe a lot of the time, and well-mulched garden beds will require less weeding. Section 11 or chapter 11 has a range of tips on weeds to make your gardening life easier and safer. If you do need to kneel, change your position regularly. You can kneel on one knee, keeping the other one up, and then swapping positions. So that's it for this tip. I hope you got some value out of it. Don't forget that you can look at my website, which I've linked below, which will show you the schedule of tips and when they become available. Also, you can subscribe and like this tip so that you can be sure to be notified as other tips as they become available. I am releasing them on a weekly basis. Thank you for watching this through to the end.